Mostly I work in ceramics and printmaking. I have started doing a lot more printmaking in the past 10 years. I enjoy using symbols over and over in my work and reimagining them. I've been inspired by the ancient Mississippian symbols, and so I use those. I've created somewhat of a vocabulary where I use them, rearrange them in different ways. For my ceramics work, I like functional pottery, and so I do a lot of mugs and bowls and things like that you would use on a daily basis. Sometimes I have a plan in mind and sometimes I don't. There was a piece that I made called Shalom Bish Holy Topama, which is based on a Choctaw hymn. I cut out and tore up a hymnal, which probably I shouldn't say out loud, but anyway, I put text on the background and then I layered up prints and paint, and I used the number 48. To me, it's kind of like an Easter egg. So if somebody's familiar with the Choctaw hymns and they see that, they'll say, oh, I know what that is. Most people aren't gonna understand, well, why does it have 48 all over it and why are these words on here? But it was just kind of getting that song out of my head for a while. Another one of my pieces I based on the Chickasaw map, the ancient map that shows like the Chickasaw territory and then the other tribes' territory. And I think that map is really important because it shows an indigenous way of marking space, which is very different than the Western way of marking space. And so that was inspirational to me, and I made a piece based on that. Other times though, I just kind of start working without an end goal in mind, and then I get to a point where I think it's finished and I stop. One of the things that I found really inspirational, my daughter and husband and I like to go to Pennington Creek in the summers. When the Chickasaws were removed, that's one of the places where they settled. And so I was just sitting on a rock and we were hanging out and just enjoying the day. And I noticed that when the water went around the rock, it made this swirl pattern and then it just kept going. And I really thought, you know, I bet that way back when people sat here and they saw this same swirl, maybe that's why we use that in our artwork. Maybe that's where this came from. These symbols that have been used over and over for hundreds of years, I just think it's fun to be part of that tradition, and I think it's important to keep that tradition going. For a broader audience, I think there's still sometimes that thought that Native people are a thing of the past and that we're not thriving here in Oklahoma. And so I like that idea of bringing attention to us as a people, that we're still here as Chickasaw people, but also just the fact that people can be artists in today's society. We don't often encourage people to be artists, and that's sad to me. I mean, I don't necessarily make a living being an artist, but I'm working in the arts every day, and I think that's important. And with my art classes, I enjoy my students so much, and I like their creativity and their passion, and helping them learn methods and ways to make themselves better is really enjoyable for me. Jean Quick-to-See Smith is probably my favorite artist. She just passed away last month, but she lived to be 85, and she dealt a lot with Native identity and how other groups see Native people. Her artwork was important to me because of the themes that she dealt with. When she was learning to be an artist and going to art school, not only as a Native American, but as a woman, she faced a lot of discrimination and pushback, and she carved out a place for herself in art history, and I think that's very inspirational.